In the 5th year of taking care of my blind boyfriend, he suddenly regained his sight. Everyone thought the first thing he would do after regaining his sight was marry me. But the moment he saw my face clearly, he quietly slipped the diamond ring he had prepared back into his pocket. I smiled self-deprecatingly. I understand. On the day I moved out of the Jung family's house, Jung Chang still maintained his dignity. He handed me a check for 10 million yuan calmly and said, Ziyi, I've always thought of you as a sister. If you're ever unhappy, you can come back to the Jiang family anytime. I didn't reply. I just threw the check into the trash can right in front of Jung Chang. Only the unruly young master of the Jiang family remained sitting in his chair, lost in thought. The moment the gauze was removed, everyone held their breath. A smile spread across Jung Chang's face, and he could barely contain his excitement. He turned to his friends impatiently and asked, Where is Ziyi? My heart warmed. I never thought the first thing Jung Chang would do after seeing the light again was look for me. Finally his eyes fell on me, crying tears of joy beside the hospital bed. Although I had only met Jiang Chang after he lost his sight. But 5 years of devoted care and companionship had made everyone, including me, believe that he would recognize me instantly. Jiang Cheng's gaze swept over my face, and his expression froze instantly. Even the ring box in his hand slipped silently behind his back. Don't joke with me. How could you be Ziyi? The moment Jung Chang said those words, an awkward silence fell over the room. Seeing how things were going, one of his friends quickly pulled me in front of Jiang Cheng, trying to save face for him, and trying to preserve my crumbling dignity. I smiled bitterly. Were you still going to propose to me? Jiang Cheng stiffened at my words, his fingers unconsciously brushing over his newly restored eyes. A suffocating silence hung over the hospital room. After a long moment he said softly, I'm sorry. I've always thought of you as a sister. Finally I stood up and tidied up the things beside his bed as I always did. Changing the subject gently, I asked, Would you like some water? That finally broke the awkward silence. His tense body relaxed slightly. Out of habit I asked, Would you like me to massage your temples? He shook his head and said softly, No thank you. Your massage skills are much better than the nurses. I stared at my hands as I organized the nightstand, remembering how I had known nothing about taking care of a patient at first. He couldn't stand being cared for by strangers, and would fly into a rage and drive every nurse away. But blind people need professional care, so I took a 6-month rehabilitation nursing course. I practiced on myself at first before I dared to carefully take care of his daily needs. The first time I dared to massage him was when he was asleep. But he was a light sleeper and woke up immediately, roaring furiously. Get out! I didn't leave. I continued massaging gently, following the acupoints my teacher had taught me. Although he couldn't see, he swept everything off the nightstand. I still stood my ground. He then threw every object he could reach across the room. The last thing he threw was a beautifully framed photograph, capturing him in his prime, standing at the signing ceremony for his company's IPO. When the frame hit my forehead and cut it open, he heard the blood dripping and tried to get up to check. But he could only sit helplessly on the bed, unable to see. Finally he buried his face in his hands and broke down crying. Just go. Leave me alone. There's no hope. I'll never see anything again. Not for the rest of my life. He had completely given up on life back then, but I stayed by his side every day, until his mother found him trying to slit his wrists in the bathroom and rushed him to the hospital. His mother was at a loss what to do. I knelt beside his bed and said, Look in my direction. He turned blankly toward the sound of my voice, and I said, Everything will be okay. Trust me. Back then I wasn't even sure if that day would ever come. But after that, I moved into his apartment. Jung Chang's mother held my hand tearfully, saying she didn't know what they would have done without me all these years. I knew exactly what she was trying to say but couldn't. I said softly, As long as Jung Chang doesn't ask me to leave, I'll stay with him forever. But the truth was, even if he did ask me to leave, I wouldn't have gone. When yet another trip to the psychologist yielded no results, he snapped. Get out. All of you. By then he could sit on the sofa by himself, and he had smashed the entire living room to pieces. But at least he had learned to avoid me. and never threw things at me anymore. When he had calmed down, I walked over to him and said again, Jung Chung, trust me. I said those words every day for 5 whole years. Slowly he started to respond to treatment. His optic nerve gradually showed signs of recovery, and eventually he could tell light from dark. Then yesterday, after the surgery, his attending doctor was amazed, saying the results had exceeded all expectations. Barring any accidents, he would regain his sight completely. When Jung Cheng's mother heard the news, she immediately pressed a bank card into my hand. I stared at the card in a daze. In 5 years I had never asked for anything in return. His friends all called me his future wife, but I knew the truth. I wasn't even his girlfriend. We had never had an official confession, let alone defined our relationship. But I had never forgotten what Jung Chang had said. Ziyi, when I can see again, we'll get married. He had said that after his first round of treatment, when the doctor had gently told us there was little hope. I helped him home, and as soon as we walked through the door, he lost control. The once brilliant financial tycoon had been plunged into endless darkness, and no one could have accepted that easily. I held him tightly, and he bit down hard on my shoulder. The bite was so deep that the scar still remains there to this day. When he felt the blood, he snapped out of it immediately and stammered, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. After I apologized and started massaging his temples as usual, he suddenly said those words. No, before that he had asked, Sengji, do you have feelings for me? I didn't look away, and looked straight at him as I said yes. He was silent for a long time before he said he would marry me. But I hadn't done any of this for something in return. I just hoped that one day he would love me as much as I loved him. Now out of habit I stood up to massage him. I knew he was watching me. After a long moment he spoke. Ziyi, you don't have to do these things anymore. My hand froze, but I finished the massage anyway. Then I looked up and asked, against all hope, Jang Chung, do you still want to marry me? He opened his mouth to speak but said nothing in the end. I could only smile bitterly at my own naivety. But he had put this ring on my finger himself. After all these years of hidden feelings, how could I not have hoped? I stood up and went to the bathroom to wash the massage lotion off my hands. The ring on my ring finger felt like it was burning my skin. From outside the door he said, Ziyi, I think of you as my own sister. Tears dripped into the sink and I quickly wiped them away. Please don't say that. Those words were more cruel than anything. When I walked out of the bathroom, the living room was still lively. I looked down into Jung Cheng's eyes and slowly, painfully took off the ring. It had never fit properly. It was a whole size too big. I didn't know if he had been careless, or if it had never been meant for me in the first place. But I had lied to myself, saying all rings were like that, and wrapped medical tape around the band to make it fit. When I took it off now, the mark from the tape was still there. I almost wished I had never put it on in the first place. Jung Cheng avoided my eyes as I placed the ring in his palm. Here, take it back. Looking at the mark on my finger, I added it was too big. He started to say something, but I shook my head and stopped him, then wheeled him out of the room. As soon as we walked out, his friends crowded around us. What were you two whispering about in there? Too secret for us to hear? Don't worry, we won't bother you today. We'll save the chaos for the wedding. We'll stay a little longer and then head out. Everyone there was polite and well-mannered. Knowing he had just had surgery, they had all brought juice and light snacks. Someone asked Jung Cheng, when you're fully recovered, let's all go to Iceland to see the northern lights. Jung Cheng agreed calmly, no longer flying into a rage at the mention of travel like he used to. Then the person turned to me and said, you should come too. We'll arrange your flight. We'll make sure you see the most beautiful northern lights. Jung Cheng looked up at me, leaving the decision to me. After 2 rejections, even the thickest skin would have had enough. I said, you guys go ahead and have fun. But Jung Cheng suddenly said, why don't you come too? You're my sister after all. The room fell silent at his words. One of his friends patted him on the shoulder and said, that's not a very funny joke. Others quickly tried to smooth things over. He just got his sight back. He's still a little disoriented. Don't mind him, sister-in-law. The moment passed with laughter, but Jang Chung remained silent. I remembered the look on my best friend's face when she saw the ring on my finger. Are you really sure about this? If he regains his sight, will he really choose you? The question I couldn't answer back then finally had an answer now. No. The party continued in harmony, soft music playing as everyone chatted about old times. I looked down and started searching for Iceland travel guides on my phone. They talked about their upcoming trip to Iceland, casually mentioning expenses that ran into hundreds of thousands of yuan. I felt out of place, and in that moment, I truly understood what my best friend had meant when she said we were from different worlds. I stood up quietly, and I could feel Jung Cheng's eyes following me. I went back to the bedroom and looked around. All the furniture and decorations had been chosen by Jung Cheng's mother. I dialed the number of the woman who had thanked me through her tears. 5 years ago. After a moment's hesitation I said, "Auntie, about that card. She replied immediately, as if she had been waiting for my call, "There's 10 million yuan in it. Use it as you please. You've worked so hard taking care of Zhao Cheng all these years." I murmured a soft, I packed a few of my things into a bag, picked up the card and turned to leave. As I walked through the living room, someone asked, "Sister-in-law, where are you going?" Not wanting to make a scene, I smiled and said, "I'm just going downstairs to buy a milk tea." They offered to order takeout, but I politely declined. The delivery fee is too expensive this late at night. Jung Cheng seemed to sense something was wrong, his eyes fixed intently on me. I waved to everyone in the room. "I'm leaving now." At 1:00 in the morning, I left the place I had called home for 5 years with that bank card in my hand. At least it had a beginning and an end. I found a temporary place to stay and settled in. No longer did I have to worry constantly about his mood. No longer did I have to live in fear that he would do something stupid. The sudden sense of freedom felt strange and disorienting at first. I stood on the balcony looking up at the sparse stars in the sky. In the quiet of the night, I finally listened to the voice inside my heart. I thought I would be heartbroken, that I would cry rivers of tears. But I wasn't. I just stared at my empty ring finger, wondering how long it would take to forget the feeling of wearing a ring there. That night, all I felt was the cool night breeze and the cold starlight. Jung Cheng called me in the early hours of the morning. There was only silence when I answered. Finally I spoke. "Is something wrong?" He hesitated, then said, "Ziyi, I want to eat the millet congee you make." After he lost his sight, he had almost stopped eating entirely. I tried everything to make him different dishes, but he always refused to take a single bite. Until I cried and begged him, "Please, just one sip. You can't go on like this." Perhaps he couldn't bear to see me cry. He frowned and took a sip of the millet congee. He never liked the congee from outside because I had figured out exactly the texture he preferred. But everything that had happened yesterday was still fresh in my mind, and his silence still echoed in my ears. I said calmly, "Jiang Cheng, I'm gone." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Not knowing what else to say, I simply hung up. The number on the bank card shocked me. I checked it repeatedly, still unable to believe it was real. As I counted the zeros one by one, I finally understood the vast chasm that had always separated us. It was true. My parents were just ordinary working-class people. When they found out I was taking care of a blind boyfriend, they came to visit me specially. That day, Jung Cheng's mother took us to a Michelin 3-star restaurant. My parents were so nervous they didn't know what to do with their hands. On the way back, they said to me, "Daughter, this road is going to be hard." But they never interfered with my choices, only saying, "If you want to try, go ahead. We'll always be here for you if it doesn't work out." Looking back now, I finally saw through Jung Cheng's mother's intentions. Those dishes that even Jung Cheng considered extravagant were unimaginable to my parents from a small town. Behind Jung Cheng's mother's warmth was a clear line drawn between social classes. The gap in our lives was impossible to ignore. I used that card to study abroad, not spending a single cent less than was there. I was busy applying for visas and arranging my travel plans. 3 years later, I ran into Jung Cheng again at a coffee shop near the embassy. He was surrounded by his friends. "Jung Cheng, if you don't win Ziyi back, I'll lose all respect for you. Go and explain everything to her. She's the one for you, we all approve of her." Jung Cheng had barely left the house in 5 years, and his skin was unnaturally pale. Listening to his friends teasing, he smiled faintly. Seng Ji showed up in F. front of me right now, I might consider it. By coincidence, I was sitting right behind them. I instinctively wanted to hide, but my friend had already called out my name. Ziyi, she ran over excitedly. Their tiramisu is amazing here. Jung Chung's table fell silent instantly. I saw them all turn to look at me. She set the dessert down in front of me and noticed my pale face.
What's wrong?
She looked at me worriedly. I suddenly realized there was no reason to let them ruin my mood. I forced a smile. Nothing. Sit down. Thank you for remembering I love tiramisu. That opened the floodgates of conversation. Since we were sitting so close, I could hear every word from Jung Chang's table clearly. This is fate, Jung Chang. You owe her an apology. Where else are you going to find a wife as good as her? If you don't make this right, we're not friends anymore. Their voices were the same as always. All of them had cared for Jung Chang during his darkest days. There was one girl among them who had always had a crush on Jung Chang. When she came to visit him in the hospital, Jung Chang had deliberately thrown a glass of warm water in her face. Her carefully done makeup was ruined instantly, water dripping down her cheeks and soaking her collar. The girl stood there awkwardly, and I quickly grabbed some tissues from the wardrobe and handed them to her. Jung Chang looked at her coldly, a sarcastic smile on his lips. And you thought you had a chance with me? The girl's eyes filled with tears, and I quietly closed the hospital room door. When she came out, she held her head high and said to me, I'm never going to like Jung Chang again. He doesn't deserve it. She turned to leave, water still dripping from her face. But she stopped at the end of the hallway and walked back. Watching me clean up the tissues on the floor, she said shyly, You're really nice. Thank you. And don't be so good to him either. He doesn't deserve everything you do for him. Then she left quickly. We became good friends after that, and we always exchanged gifts on holidays. All of Jung Chang's friends were kind people. I was lost in my memories when I suddenly heard that familiar voice beside me. Zenji. I looked up instinctively and saw Jung Chang standing there. His brows furrowed, looking like he wanted to say something but couldn't. His friends cheered. Go on, Jung Chang. Apologize to your wife and win her back. Jung Chang's frown deepened. But I didn't need his apology anymore. Love was always a two-way street. Besides, the amount on that bank card was more than enough compensation for 5 years of my life. I couldn't be greedy. Jung Chang stood in front of me, hesitating. I decided to spare him the trouble and spoke first. You don't have to apologize. I don't need one. He looked visibly relieved, but as he turned to leave, he stopped and asked, When are you coming home? Perhaps I hadn't been clear enough last time. This time I said it firmly. I'm never coming back. Jung Chang stared at me for a long time, then finally nodded softly. He went back to his table where his friends were still teasing him. Well? Did you win her back? When's the wedding? We're waiting for the wedding banquet. We're not getting married, Jung Chang said coldly, his voice tinged with impatience. The whole table fell silent. Jung Chang raised his voice, anger clear in his tone. Why does everyone assume I'm going to marry her? Does every act of kindness have to be repaid with marriage? I told you I only think of her as a sister. Third time. It was time for me to stop. I stood up and said to his friends, the wedding was a misunderstanding. I was just paid to take care of Jung Chang. Jung Chang looked up at me sharply, and I met his gaze without flinching. Looking at his dark expression, I said, We don't even have a sibling bond. Let's just be strangers. During those 5 years taking care of Jung Chang, I often wondered, if Mr. Darcy from Jane Austen's novels had never met Elizabeth Bennet, would he have fallen in love with Charlotte? At first I thought he would, then I thought he wouldn't. I went back and forth between the two answers, never finding a resolution. I never found out how their story ended, but the answer to mine and Jung Chang's was now clear. Jung Chang fell in love. Loudly and publicly. He announced their relationship on his WeChat moments, and proudly introduced his girlfriend to all his friends. So much so that it was impossible for me to pretend I didn't know. I met Jung Chang and his girlfriend at a birthday party. The unexpected meeting caught everyone off guard. When Jung Chang walked in holding his girlfriend's hand, my friends squeezed my hand tightly. After all, they had all seen how I had taken care of him for 5 years. I smiled reassuringly at her, and looked calmly at the girl Jiang Cheng had brought with him. She was stunningly beautiful, like a fairy who had stepped out of a painting. I couldn't help but glance down at my own plain clothes, and suddenly everything made sense. When our eyes met, he casually found a corner to sit down. But as soon as he sat down, he called the waiter over and ordered a dessert. When it arrived, he placed it in front of the girl, who leaned over and whispered something in his ear happily. She chattered excitedly to him, but he didn't even bother to look down at her. His gaze wandered lazily over the dessert, and it was obvious to anyone that he wasn't really listening. If this was what being in love looked like for him, it was pretty boring. I didn't feel sad at all, but my friend had drunk too much. She kept telling me she wanted to set me up with someone, and I patiently talked her down. As I helped her to leave, Jiang Cheng's girlfriend called out to me, "Sister, I know who you are." I stopped and she continued, "Thank you for taking care of Jiang Cheng all these years." I nodded and started to help my friend leave. The girl, eager to prove something to me and oblivious to the sudden tension in the room, hurried to stand in front of me. But if I had been by Jiang Cheng's side back then, I could have done the same thing. All those late-night panic attacks, all the smashed glasses, all the endless sleepless nights. She said she could have handled it. I let out a soft laugh. Anyone could say those words, but there were no what-ifs in real life. Then again, maybe if Jiang Cheng lost his sight again, she could find out for herself if she could handle it. Jiang Cheng's face had already turned dark, and my friend quickly tried to smooth things over. I joked, "If that ever happens, you'd be better off hiring a professional nurse." At that, Jiang Cheng's temper flared. Bang! He slammed his wine glass down on the table. I turned to look at him. He cut me off impatiently. "Let's just let the past stay in the past. It's boring." His words stung. He clearly thought those 5 years had been a humiliating experience, one he never wanted to mention again. The next day, when my best friend heard what had happened, she was furious. "What does she mean? Is she trying to rub it in your face?" I stared at the enormous sum of compensation money on my phone, and suddenly felt an unexpected sense of peace. That was when I truly understood the power of money. But my best friend was convinced I was putting on a brave face, and she tried again to set me up. "Jiang Cheng has moved on. Let me introduce you to someone. With your looks and personality, you could have anyone you want." Everyone these days seemed to be in a hurry to get married, but I preferred to take things slow. I wanted to meet someone I could truly connect with. I politely declined. "No thank you." My friend took my refusal as proof that I still hadn't gotten over Jiang Cheng. She ranted about him, and I laughed and agreed with a few of her points. Time passed slowly. I learned photography and fell in love with traveling. During this time, some people did show interest in me. But as soon as I said I wanted to take things slow and get to know each other first, they ran away as if I had the plague. It wasn't long before I saw their relationship posts popping up on my Moments feed. My best friend joked that I was the reincarnation of the matchmaker. I laughed too. For those 5 years taking care of Jiang Cheng, I had given him every ounce of my attention. Now I wanted to focus on building my own life first. I needed to empty my heart completely before I could let someone new in. I believed I would eventually meet someone just as sincere, someone who was willing to take the time to get to know me. Jiang Cheng quickly found someone new after his breakup. He announced their relationship publicly, and gradually everyone around us understood that he and I were over for good. I went to the UK to further my studies, and started a whole new life there. I didn't come back to China for 3 years, but news of Jiang Cheng always seemed to find its way to me. I heard he was single again, and that he seemed to have finally settled down. His friends started dropping hints that I should come back, saying that Jiang Cheng had changed. As the Lunar New Year approached, I had no choice but to come home. I never expected to see a group of familiar faces waiting for me as soon as I got off the plane. All of Jiang Cheng's friends were there. "Zee," they exclaimed, "studying abroad has made you even more elegant." They hadn't distanced themselves from me because of what happened between Jiang Cheng and me. One friend had even sent me a message the day I left Jiang Cheng. "Zee, even without Jiang Cheng, I still want to be your friend." But what surprised me most was that Jiang Cheng was there too. He was standing apart from the crowd, staring blankly into the distance. In the end, He was the one who spoke first. Long time no see. His demeanor was completely different from 3 years ago. He greeted me like an old friend. I replied politely, long time no see. He hesitated, then said, my eyes ... He was cut off mid-sentence by my phone ringing. I smiled apologetically and answered the call. Sister, where are you? A clear, bright male voice came through the receiver. His cheerful tone lifted my spirits. I'll send you my location. Take your time. After I hung up, my friends had already decided on a place for dinner. When they finished talking, I asked, is it okay if I bring someone? Everyone asked curiously, who? A figure wearing the same beige coat as me came running from a distance like a warm little sun. He took my hand directly and said coquettishly, I missed you so much. His sudden action took all my friends by surprise. I tried to take his luggage from him, but he refused firmly. I had no choice but to introduce him to my friends. This is Shen Yao, my boyfriend. Fate is truly strange. It arrives when you least expect it. When Shen Yao first confessed his feelings to me, I had still said I wanted to take things slow. I thought he would give up quickly like all the others, but he actually stayed and took things at my pace. Before I knew it, he had become an integral part of my life. At my age, when I say I want to take things slow, most people think I'm just making excuses. But this younger man actually took every step with me, patiently and sincerely. Warm and genuine. You've been keeping this a secret really well. We never would have found out if you hadn't brought him today. You definitely have to buy us dinner now. I hadn't actually been hiding it on purpose. I just hadn't expected him to come back with me. That day I had missed my flight because of traffic. While I was rebooking, I had received a pitiful message from him. Why aren't you here yet? I'm so sad waiting for you. It turned out he had bought a ticket for the seat next to mine to surprise me, but we had ended up missing each other by chance. He had arrived at the airport early to wait for me, and we had only just met up. As my friends continued to tease me, I smiled and said, this one's on me. Shen Yao immediately raised his hand and said, let me pay. With his cheerful personality, he quickly fit in with everyone. When we got to the restaurant, we saw that with Shen Yao, the table was perfectly full. Just then, someone noticed that Zheng Cheng was gone. They quickly called him. Zheng Cheng's voice sounded weak. My eyes suddenly started hurting. I'm at the hospital. Everyone immediately became concerned.
What's wrong?
What did the doctor say? It's nothing. The doctor said I just need to rest. You guys go ahead and eat. Even though he said that, everyone knew how serious his eye condition was. Seeing their troubled expressions, I stepped in to help. You guys should go check on Jiang Cheng. We can reschedule dinner for another day. Shen Yao and I are tired too. We're going to head home and rest. Shen Yao was very understanding and didn't get upset about the sudden change of plans. He smiled and said goodbye to everyone. On the way home, he chatted excitedly about everything he had seen and done abroad, finding something interesting to talk about on every street corner. He was always like that, full of curiosity about the world, like a child who would never grow up. No one expected that when we got home we would find Zheng Cheng standing outside our door. Shen Yao's hand tightened around mine for a moment. When he saw Zheng Cheng walking towards us, he greeted him politely. Brother Zheng Cheng. His tone was gentle, and he even called him brother voluntarily. I couldn't help but glance at him. Zheng Cheng smiled at him but didn't reply. He looked at me. Ziyi. His eyes never left me. Long time no see, he repeated. Shen Yao didn't get upset at being ignored. He just stood quietly beside me holding my hand. Zheng Cheng opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. This is my boyfriend, Shen Yao. Zheng Cheng forced a stiff smile. Then, he said, I think there's something wrong with my eyes again. Shen Yao immediately said with concern, then you should go to the hospital and get checked out right away. He took out his phone and asked earnestly, should I call you a taxi? He added, after all, my girlfriend isn't a doctor. Zheng Cheng ignored him completely and called out again. Ziyi. Shen Yao turned to me and asked, Sister, why isn't he answering me? I had no idea why Zheng Cheng was ignoring him. Zheng Cheng called again. Ziyi. Shen Yao leaned close to my ear and whispered, Sister, what's going on? I pushed his head away. I don't know. He leaned in again to ask more. I took out my keys to open the door out of habit, then remembered Jiang Cheng was still there. Shen Yao said pointedly, "Sister brother Jiang Cheng is still waiting." Jiang Cheng's expression twisted slightly. When he saw me looking at him, he said, "Can we talk?" Shen Yao squeezed my hand. "Sister, does he need to talk to you about something?" That's when I realized he had been deliberately acting innocent this whole time. I played along. "There's nothing to talk about." After I closed the door, Shen Yao immediately hugged me. "I'm jealous." I stroked his hair. "What are you jealous about?" I had told him everything about Jiang Cheng when we first got together. There was no reason for him to be worried. "I hate how oblivious you are." Before I could reply, he smiled again. "But it's okay that you're oblivious." He buried his face in my shoulder and whispered, "It means you don't notice when other people are interested in you, but—" That night, Jiang Cheng still called. "Ziyi, did you know that your boyfriend was still seeing his ex-girlfriend for 3 years after they broke up?" Jiang Cheng really had been admitted to the hospital, and his condition was unclear. All the girlfriends who had once said they would take care of him flocked to the hospital to visit. My friends even made bets on how long each of them would stay. The answer was 2 days. Most of them left after just a few hours. Everyone around me said he got what he deserved, and they kept reminding me not to soften my heart. How could I? I had never once considered going back, not since the day I received that compensation money. Late that night, Jiang Cheng's mother suddenly sent me a message. "Ziyi, can you please come see Jiang Cheng just once?" Shen Yao was sitting right beside me when I received the message. I replied immediately. "I'm sorry, but my boyfriend wouldn't like it." She called me begging desperately. "I'll pay you anything. Name your price." "Jiang Cheng won't eat a single thing." "How did this happen? How did it come to this?" She was rambling incoherently, her voice breaking with tears. From the bits and pieces I could make out, I gathered that Jiang Cheng's eye condition was not good. Aunt Jiang cried. "Why did this have to happen to my Jiang Cheng? Please help me. If he keeps going like this, something terrible will happen." Shen Yao, who had been listening beside me, said understandingly, "It's okay if you go see him. I won't mind." But there was no point anymore. Why would I go see him? And if I agreed even once, they would just keep asking for more and more. I stood firm against the distraught woman. "I'm sorry, but we're even now. There's nothing between us anymore. I'm happy now, and Jiang Cheng should move on too." The next day, I heard from a friend that Jiang Cheng had developed complications with his eyes, and the doctor said there was a small chance he would go blind again. He had worked so hard to regain his sight, and now he was facing darkness again. It was a devastating blow. I ignored all the messages she sent me, but then Jiang Cheng called suddenly. I thought he was calling to ask which hospital I had been going to for my checkups. But what he said was, "Ziyi, how long do you think you and that little boyfriend of yours will last?" I didn't say anything, and he continued, "Want to make a bet?" "Bet on what?" "Bet on whether his love for you is real." I let out a cold laugh. This kind of test only destroys the foundation of a relationship. "I'm not interested in your silly games." But he seemed to have expected my answer. "Just you wait. All men are the same deep down." I put the strange phone call out of my mind. Things were extremely busy at the end of the year. Shen Yao asked me to go shopping and to exhibitions several times, but I had to turn him down every time. He moped around like a lost puppy, his head hanging low all day. It wasn't until he saw how swamped I was that he started finding things to do on his own. With his cheerful personality, he quickly made new friends. He started leaving early every morning. Sometimes I would see him when I woke up, but more often than not, all I would find was a note he had left on the dining table. Gradually, a feeling of unease began to creep over me. Where was he going? Who was he with? I remembered when I had gone on a business trip for a week, he had called and texted me constantly, asking what I was doing. Now I finally understood how he must have felt back then. I wanted to find time to talk to him properly, but before I could, Jiang Cheng sent me a photo from a new phone number. The photo showed Shen Yao laughing and talking with a girl in a coffee shop. My heart sank. He had told me he was going to meet an old classmate. Jiang Cheng's messages came one after another. "See? What did I tell you? Betty doesn't come home tonight. I blocked him, but I couldn't stop myself from texting Shen Yao. What are you doing? He replied instantly. Having dinner with friends. I hesitated for a long time, but in the end I didn't ask when he would be home. Around 10, he said voluntarily. So I would wait until 10. Time ticked by minute by minute. I paced restlessly up and down the living room. It was 11:00. Shen Yao hadn't come home, nor had he sent any message. Jiang Cheng called again from a new number. Believe me now, all men are the same. I suddenly found it ridiculous. So what if he really betrayed me? I can just start over. I would never stop believing in love just because I'd been hurt before. Back when the girl who had a crush on Jiang Cheng said he didn't deserve me, I didn't take it seriously. I thought someone as brilliant as him could never not deserve me. Looking back on those 5 years of taking care of him, he was negative and decadent. He had the best treatment available, yet he refused to even try. And now he just wants to drag me down with him. She was right. I had misjudged him. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was still waiting. But why was I waiting? Why was I letting Jiang Cheng's words get to me instead of just asking Shen Yao directly? Why was I letting a third person interfere in our relationship? I grabbed my coat and went downstairs. As soon as I got downstairs, I saw Shen Yao getting out of a car. The woman from the photo was sitting in the back seat. When he saw me, he panicked visibly. Ziyi, I'm sorry I'm late. The woman in the car noticed me too, and waved politely. I stopped the car before it could drive away. The driver honked impatiently, and I knocked on the window. The woman rolled down the window, her makeup flawless. Can I help you? I looked her straight in the eye. You two used to date, didn't you? She hurried to explain. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm just here on a business trip. I cut her off. Just answer the question. Shen Yao rushed to explain. There was a traffic jam. From 10 o'clock to 1 in the morning? What kind of magical traffic jam is that? I said firmly. Tell me the truth. Yes. Shen Yao had never mentioned this past relationship while we were dating. Some people might not care, but I did. I turned and walked away. The woman quickly got out of the car to explain. It really was just a chance encounter. He said he was traveling here, so we had dinner together. Nothing happened. You can check the security cameras if you don't believe me. She kept rambling until Shen Yao cut her off sharply. Enough. She froze on the spot, and Shen Yao said, You can leave now. After watching her leave, he stopped me as I was about to go upstairs. We need to talk. I looked up at him. There's nothing to talk about. Honesty is the most important thing in a relationship. I told him everything about me, but he hid the fact that he was meeting his first love behind my back. I'm not an idiot. I only chose to play dumb because I liked him. I didn't want to talk to anyone else or respond to their kindness. I ignored all other advances and shut myself off from the world. If that's how it is, then we should break up. This relationship had started quickly, and it ended just as quickly. When my friends asked me to hang out and told me to bring Shen Yao, I said flatly, we broke up. My friends felt sorry for me and offered to set me up with someone, but I refused again. I still believed in sincere love. And if I never found it, being alone was fine too. Jiang Cheng's mother kept calling me, begging me to go see him. I never gave in. I sent her all the nutrition recipes and medication instructions I had compiled over the years. Then booked a flight back to my hometown. This time I actually made my flight. As soon as I sat down, I saw that Shen Yao was there too. He smiled at me. Sister, this time we didn't miss each other. But he still wouldn't even try to understand why I was angry. He just wanted to sweet-talk me into making up. I'm sorry. Can we start over? Can you forgive me? Let's not do this anymore. He repeated the same words over and over again. When he was first chasing me, I would overanalyze every single message he sent me. Now he wouldn't even give me a proper explanation, especially since I had refused Jiang Cheng's mother, even when she begged me on her knees to go see him. I couldn't understand why he had to see his first love so badly. Don't say anything else. It's over. I got off the plane and he was still standing there. When I looked back as I was getting into a taxi, he was gone. The passionate young man had finally run out of patience. But it was okay. At least I had gotten to experience his warmth. I would still welcome The next chance at love with an open heart. This story profoundly warns us. Self-moved devotion can never win equal love. Cutting losses in time and investing in yourself is the soberest choice after being let down. The heroine took meticulous care of her blind boyfriend for 5 years, accompanying him through the darkest days of his life. However, after regaining his sight, he broke off the engagement on the grounds of siblinghood, due to the gap in appearance and social class, only willing to compensate her with money. Instead of wallowing in pain, she resolutely accepted the compensation to study abroad, turning the price of 5 years of youth into capital for self-growth. Later she met a sincere lover, while the regretful ex-boyfriend could only pester her endlessly after losing her, and ended up with nothing. It teaches us never to give up self-growth for anyone. Your value never needs others' recognition to be defined, and the life held in your own hands is the most reliable.